Okay, as people start to join.
Oh, Jeff,
So,
do Jeff and Beth know the song? Are they, you may have to ask them if they are among God's chosen people and are Monty Python fans.
Oh, yes.
oh, yes.
Which song is that?
So,
Celia last week played there was a happy hour call, played the Look on the Bright Side of Life.
Oh, yes.
And watching the looks, half the people were just beaming. They're happy, going, "What the?"
Oh, yes. Life of Brian, one of my favorites.
yeah. So we had some Monty Python movies.
Run away. Sorry. Wrong attitude. Social distance.
Norris is in rare form today.
Oh.
Yeah.
Coffee and a really healthy smoothie.
All right.
It looks so bad and tastes so bad. It must be healthy, right?
Maybe. I don't know.
Okay, so, guys, be nice. Humble. My apartment complex gave us all these little spray things for hand sanitizer, the refillable, and of course you get the nice little branding touch. And the funny thing is, they had these acquired before the crisis.
Wow.
People were not wiping off the exercise equipment. And now they would wipe them off for 10 minutes, do 5 minutes exercise, and then spend 10 minutes wiping them off anyway. But we are all social distance, so no exercise machines, no sauna. I can live without a swimming pool with water temperature of 40 degrees.
Interesting.
Anyway, we have work to do. I'm sorry.
We do have work to do. I think, well, thanks for joining us. I'm envious. I learned how to do that background thing.
Oh, look, yeah, Jeff's background looks cool.
I know. You can do that on your Zoom, Mark.
Yeah,
we'd love to see your face.
If you hover over there's a little up arrow next to stop video, and you can choose virtual background below that. I don't know if you can do that on your phone, though.
No, I'm sorry. I had to run out for something, so I broke the rules, but I had to get some eggs. But I'll be right back.
Okay. No, we want you to be, we want you to have nutrition while you're socially distancing. So
it's not for me. It's for my kids. It drive me crazy.
Oh, well, I appreciate that. So, so here we are, and we're going to talk about sustainable work in a life of crisis. So thank you all for being on the call, and I guess we could drop an agenda. Jeff can drop the right one in. That would be great, because he notified me that I put the wrong one in the email. So I think I was lazy yesterday and cut and pasted, so my apologies. So normally we do a popcorn question, but I think now I just want to know, like, how are you coming to this call? Like, how are you arriving today? So I will ask, and we'll popcorn. I'll ask Norris, how are you arriving today?
Ooh, so trying Jeff's side, the idea of the psychedelic background might be a little, that's just really weird. How am I coming? I think I mentioned before that I had felt last week had been feeling very like disrespected, insulted, abused, and I started doing the old count your blessings thing, and I heard all the stuff that has happened to me, the things I've done, and I thought, damn, I've had a good year already. Maybe it's okay if we have the virus, I could screw off for a while. It's been very recharging, and I'm watching all the people turning their conferences, all these things you have to be face to face, you have to be together with, and they're figuring out ways. I will check that. I'll change this background. That's really freaky looking. That even if the summit has to be virtual or postponed, we're going to be okay. I just really had that sense, and and especially it's because of people like you guys, like Beth and Jeff and Mark and all. We'll figure this out. So I'm saying one word. I'm back to balls to the wall optimism. and I will kick it to Chad, who's been being under house arrest by the Australian government, it sounds like. So how you doing, Chad?
Yeah, really good, actually. Thanks, Norris. Yeah, it's been a pretty incredible time there, locking down the states, locking down the nations. As far as how I'm doing, really well. Mostly because it's really been a good opportunity to mobilize a lot of the leaders around kind of how we respond. As we're seeing a bit of a groundswell there. I've got some Slack channels and just some new things happening. But yeah, for me personally, it's I guess lockdown is not a lot different from doing a thesis. I've been under my own personal house arrest and get my PhD out of the way. But yeah, we're getting through it, and it's going pretty well. Might toss over to Jeff in space there.
Thanks. So you can see I'm social distancing really well. As far as the social distancing, I'm a lifelong introvert, so this is status quo for me. I'm a social distancing expert, so it's not a disruption for me at all. I'm liking staying home. Just the anxiety, of course, and the uncertainty is stressful, but I'm optimistic. I'm seeing communities come together to help entrepreneurs, and it looks really cool seeing cities and people coming together to help their entrepreneurs. So that's a note of enthusiasm that I'm trying to focus on. I will kick it over to Katie.
Hi there. Well, actually, I'm feeling pretty peaceful today. I actually love working out of my home office because, Jeff, I'm an introvert as well. I could be here all weekend for days and not see a soul, and I'm great. But I'm also get the feeling that people are really getting a handle on this and resigning themselves to do what they need to do to stay safe. Thankfully, they're all safe as far as I know right now. So I'm going into solution mode. So what do we do? What do we do next? It's gonna end. We got to be ready when it does.
And you got to pick somebody.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm just happy I'm done. Okay, I'll go with Chad. No, Chad already went. Mark.
All right. Yeah, like everyone said, I'm coming today optimistic and hopeful. We spent a lot of time. I know I spent a lot of time launching this amazing space for entrepreneurs at my community college, and then we had this pandemic, so now we can't use it. So now we got to take it virtual, but we're adapting. But I'm also just using the time to, really, really focus on a couple projects, crank out a couple grants and proposals, and just get ready for when things change or get us closely back to normal, whatever that's going to be. So I'll pass it to Beth.
Hey all, thank you, Mark. I'm doing good. I'm also cautiously optimistic, and I'm telling folks when I'm talking with them to please train themselves to be optimistic, because we need to be the majority putting that out into the universe so this thing gets done much quicker than people are forecasting, please. Had a great conference call this morning with 25 women business owners here in my region, all working to help each other with different resources and answering questions. And it was really great. I think, just seeing how people are becoming more, what's the word? We're caring more about others, I think, than we ever have before collectively. So it's encouraging to see that, but it shouldn't have to take a pandemic for it to happen. Celia.
Thank you. Hold on. I was just seeing the chat, and I was just typing away. The call that Victor is hosting is predominantly an SCN member call. It's because he's trying to beta or aiming it towards an audience first. So it's not like a big wide call. intentionally. So I just want to be mindful that if you're joining the call, maybe it's not necessarily ready for a total public, but if you've heard about the call, then you should by all means join and do so by signing up. So I just wanted to let everyone be aware of that. And it's not about America's New Business Plan. It's actually about his, the initiative that he's been working on, which is a grassroots thing about the right to start is what it's called. So, so if you're interested in that, then please do join, but also maybe be mindful about sharing it specifically. Does that make sense? So as far as the way I'm arriving, for me, it's kind of business as usual. I worked remotely for a while now, and so this is the way that I do community and do the work. So the things that have changed are I don't have travel right now planned, which means that I am running out of excuses not to deep clean my condo, which I've put off. So there's that. And I have nothing to pack for, which is a little sad, but I'm enjoying this newfound time to regroup and take a breath and remember that that this is going to be the things that we're working on. What I'm really inspired by and continue to be inspired about is all of you who, this thing started out as a bunch of people being invited a couple of years ago to come and build a field called ecosystem building, or to explore and move that forward. And you're here, right? And you're doing those things in your communities and helping to support. My big concern right now is, how are you sustainable? Because the goal of this call, or the goal of this goal, was actually to start off in making what we do sustainable. And I know that you're all scrambling to help your communities be sustainable, but I want to also introduce the idea of how do we get to sustainability? Because I've had a couple of calls with people. It's a pretty sobering subject because they don't have income coming in or being paid by anybody to do work. So how do we get there? So my big questions for today are, how are we helping the communities be sustainable in a system-wide approach? And how are you and other ecosystem builders finding sustainability? So there you go. That's, I don't know, I didn't want to be a downer, but I think it's a reality check. Thoughts? Go ahead.
Well, one thing. Oh, go ahead, Chad.
Yeah, no, that's a good lead in. So yeah, it is an interesting conversation. I think one we need to have. We did a survey recently. It was actually the registration process. I think I told some of you the story. Last Tuesday, somebody in the ecosystem posted saying, "Hey, what is this impact on the innovation hubs?" Gave the guy a call. Within like a day, we spun up an event. Had about 200 people register. Over 100 were on the webinar. And we asked some questions during the registration. What are your biggest challenges, biggest opportunities? And reading through the challenges, as you say, it can be sobering. People concerned about families, predominantly within the innovation space, even as we just heard Mike say, a lot of people had just opened up co-working spaces, getting ready for their big launch. Hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars invested into it. And they're saying, well, what do we do now? Because we've just completely transformed fundamental business models, anything reliant on a physical space to do business. But by the same token, the opportunities that people talk about and how do we focus on that? So it is kind of that both sides conversation. Yes, it is challenging. Yes, we shouldn't minimize it. We need to acknowledge it and normalize it. It is normal to feel like this, exactly as Cecilia's just done. But then as rapidly as possible, start focusing on, as Katie said, so what needs to happen? What are the opportunities? How do we get our focus on actually just one step moving forward? And I'll just end off saying, we created a Slack channel in Australia for innovation leaders. And it is very specific. It's not for startups looking to get funding or how do they navigate. Like there's other rooms for that. There's other avenues. But it is specifically for the leaders to come together to say, how do we navigate across the different aspects of the ecosystem, from investment to hubs to programs to sectors, things like that. So I guess all we really can do is say, so what needs to happen? How do we take that next step forward? But it'd be interesting to other people on how do we get that shift for others when you do have a lot of just the security concerns. How am I going to feed my family? How am I going to, get a job? Especially if I haven't had income for some time, or if I was going on grants and things like that. Part of it is bringing people together, but practical ideas. What does that look like in the next 4 to 6 months when people are really going to be struggling? There's going to be a lot of government money coming out to help support. How do we align with that to be able to help serve our communities better? Interested in other people's thoughts there.
Well, one thing this idea has been out by a lot of people, but it really got accelerated in Portland by our friend Rick Tarosi. It's simply encouraging people to buy gift cards, get the businesses to actually do things like that to get some cash in now. And I'm learning things like I've never used Square, but apparently if you have that Square thing on your phone, you can actually create virtual gift cards with a couple clicks of a button. Did not know that. That's something that'd be useful in really in any setting. But a lot trying to celebrate the people who are finding clever ways to try to keep things going. I think it's more Steve Blank's latest blog, one of his recent blogs was, this is the time to rethink your whole business model. Is that, you've got some time, do a deep dive, what's going on in the external business environments you have, what's going on in your stakeholder network, what's going on that you might be able to handle better, because the world has changed. Certainly supply chains are drastically changed these days, and there's a lot of good stuff out there on that. One thing we can do is just, is to help local businesses to kind of rethink what they're doing. This is their chance to redo their supply chain. It's a chance for them to reanalyze their customers and figure out how do they serve them. And I'm thinking, I'm seeing people starting to get clever in their responses, and I kind of wish I had a balcony and a tambourine so I could sing, but I think there's a lot we can do to sort of wisdom of the crowd to what are the clever things that local businesses can, the people we're serving, whether they're startups or existing businesses. There's a lot we could do to be helping them. So one thing we're gearing up here is, and there are a couple global initiatives that are basically mini lessons on how to reinvent your business. So my ugly mug will be on a couple more webinars in the next week or so. It's kind of exciting, but it's also kind of daunting because, stakes are high. But
so Norris, let me ask you, because there are all those solutions that are popping up, and I know it's a conversation that Jeff and the Goal 4 group have talked about. Is there are all these resources and the information is getting out there. How do we cull and collaborate the information? But the question that I want to go back to is, how is that working towards sustainability for you, right? Because this is basically going back to, this is the stuff that we do for free. And in trying to create and sustain a field, like if ecosystem builders aren't sustainable through this crisis, then we don't have ecosystem builders, right? We go back to having to do this all over again.
Well, one of the things that I'm getting some traction on now is connecting some entrepreneurs I know who might have something to contribute to the fight against COVID, and been able to connect them with potential customers. And there will be a finder's fee of some sort involved in that. It won't be huge, but it will be a good start. And to get the very best people to sign up for these mini lessons is people are going to be, have the option of, selling their, okay, here's the teaser, here's the kind of the first few pages of, of a short lesson. If you want more, you're going to have to pay a little. And we have got government support here for to support some of that. But you've got, got the best guy in the Pacific Northwest at doing MVPs. He ought to be able to wet his beak at the end of the process. And so I'm trying to figure out what could I get paid? What could I get paid for? But I think getting it started, there are lots of interesting, universities are desperate for content, non-crappy online stuff. What can they do differently, not just transforming their original courses? So there's some interest around novel things in entrepreneurship, even ecosystem building. I had a university contact me saying, we'd like to do a course. And I saw their outline. They desperately need our help, the outline of the course. But I'm thinking one is that, is that you can get paid for some of the connecting you do, kind of the matchmaking, and get paid for, what your skills are. I mean, I would, I'd send Jeff $5 to write like him. I'd get a few lessons, that sort of thing. But maybe we do need to, not do everything for free. Maybe freemium, but not free. Did that make any sense?
Yeah, I'll just touch base on it just real briefly. As a story, I went and picked up my car the other day. Volkswagen mechanic. He works just on the old cars, and he's looking at shutting up shop. Doesn't know what to do, but he's also sitting on a lot of stock. There's a lot of people with cars in their garages, always side projects that they were going to work on. Finding that the thing that we do the best, that connection. And I think for a lot of us, it is just getting in there. And for him to be able to stay open, he would pay $500,000 a month to get another 10 jobs in, just to scale back to nothing. So just to be able to take people in the online environment, especially a lot of these traditional shops that don't quite know how to make that gap, it's not going to be a lot. But like all of us, I think we're just going to have to go back to what is the minimum we can get just to sustain. And I think there should be enough out there in order to do that and making those connections. But I'd be interested to hear from other people on what they're experiencing.
I think that making the case for ecosystem building is more important now than it ever has been. Currently, all of the opportunities that are out there, every problem is an opportunity. And when this thing is over, the opportunities are going to be numerous. And the more we can get people thinking about entrepreneurship and building these ecosystems across the country, the better off we're going to be. So, goal 6, coupled with what Victor's doing, potentially could make a big impact prior to everything coming loose again. I'm not sure that we can get there if there's a way, but I could see it happening if we had the resources.
I'll share something I thought I had the other day. I had a thought the other day of collecting stories of ecosystem builders who are having an impact in their communities by doing whatever, and sharing those. And so I'm going to start playing around with ideas. So if we can share the stories of after this is all over, how ecosystem builders made an impact in their community to help entrepreneurs and small businesses, I'm hoping that kind of is proof in the pudding, to coin a bad phrase, that ecosystem builders have value to society and make a case for supporting us.
I think Mark wanted to say something. Or is that right, Mark?
I do, but give me 1 second. I'm going to log into my computer. I'm home now.
Okay, so I'm trying to take notes as diligently as I can, but I'm going to invite all of you to do that. the channel, on the agenda. The other, because I don't know that I've captured all the things that all of you have said. The other thing is, what is very helpful is that repository document that we created, to just put your big takeaways, so that we can capture those after each call, is now as important as ever to make sure that we're capturing content. Jeff, while Mark's logging onto his computer, will you share the things that we talked about on the goal 4 call about the importance of trying to get information together? And then when you're done, I guess we'll.
Oh, you're probably thinking that I remember more about that than I actually do. Was that the one where you had the idea about it, where Katie had the idea, I think, actually, about a survey to send out to ecosystem builders about resources or how they're helping entrepreneurs? So my idea is a little bit different than that. But maybe Katie, you can explain. I don't know, it was your idea if I remember right. And I don't know where that's gone. I haven't really checked in on that since last week. I know we started a document and you started the Facebook page, Cecilia, but I haven't followed it lately.
Yeah. Idea was to find out what people are using. Well, two types of information. Number one, what ideas they're recommending to their constituents and their networks, what survival strategies they're recommending for the box, solutions they're recommending, and also what resources they've identified. For instance, one of the constant requirements in our network from the entrepreneurs is more social media knowledge. And we found a resource where you can get access to all their free social media webinars for 30 days. Perfect. They've got the time. They might as well educate themselves. So things like some survey where we can gather what everybody is using and put it in one spot.
Yeah, so that one was more looking for resources that ecosystem builders can put entrepreneurs to. And my idea is a little different as far as just trying to find stories. Like Jake Hammond in Peoria has done some cool stuff, and Rick has done some cool stuff in Portland. Just being able to tell the story of that, I think, is kind of where I'm going. But I don't know if that helps, Cecilia.
Yeah, it does. I think the other document, so the idea of the survey kind of morphed into a discussion of how do we take all of this information, all of this, so Eric also mentioned it, how do we take all this information and open it up so that people can keep adding information, but have a little more structure to it so that it's not just a lot of noise. So there's a document I put into the Slack, which talked about, like, what would it look like if we had an open source tool where you can vote up and down the questions that are being asked and the solutions that are being presented. And we thought that Reddit would be a good kind of environment for that, because it has that natural tendency to be able to vote up and down. The other thing is that because people have to sign in, there would be some kind of heat map of where solutions are being presented and where there's disengagement. And the idea of that is, you know, if they're not engaged, then does that mean that they've found a solution that's helpful? Or is it they're desperately in need of help because there's no solutions that are being presented in that area? So so it would be twofold, and it would help us gather information at the same time sharing information out. So there's actually a project team page in Slack about the project info collection, and it's not so much about collecting the information. I think that's where the Facebook page has gone, right? So there's an open Facebook page that's Ecosystems Unite. It's an agnostic page that where people can post some solutions that are being shared. And now the Slack channel is more about how do we create a process to collect information in in opportunities like this, where the content can be crowdsourced so that we can live outside of our own heads and communities and share best practices. But at the same time, there is some kind of organizational thing so that if it's solutions for small businesses, like Norris talked about, the gift cards, Chad talked about being online and things like that. How do you get online? How do you create a gift card? That falls into one sector or bucket. And then if it's like, here are forms for SBA loans and grant money and things like that, that falls into another section, so that it's not all of this stuff like being channeled at you. So there's that. Mark, do you want to speak to something else before?
Yeah, so yeah, I was driving, so apologize. I'm basic now. Got the eggs. Everyone's happy. But I offer a couple of thoughts on sustainability. So I posted a question in the group, and you're right. We're all altruistic by nature. We do this for the love. But I come to this work from management consulting, Big Four firm management consulting, where there's multiple projects, multiple ways to charge, and also from a community economic development perspective. So I stopped using the word ecosystem building. I said I sit at the intersection, and then I look for ways to add value and get people to pay for me. Don't get me wrong. I haven't figured it out, but I've tried a couple of ways. So entrepreneurs obviously get free services, right? Because they're a foundation, they can't afford to pay for what we have to offer. So I look at the systems, right? So if you look at any big consulting firm, they have 2 or 3 anchor clients that keep them fed. So you need large institutions that'll pay you to provide services on retainer, right? So not anything specific like hourly. And then you have these side projects where you pay for value. So just to, sort of share, and I know it's taboo because some people see it as competitive advantage, but one of the sustainability models we talked about, and I actually participated this at the summit, was this funding compass. Here are all the different ways ecosystem builders make money. Depending on your project and how you're interacting, you could pull from this funding compass for a basic framework. So let me tell you what was working for me well before this pandemic, right? So real estate developers and real estate owners that had underutilized assets would pay me to help come in and manage and drive innovation, give them an innovation operating system for their space. It's not just a co-working or accelerator space, but they knew that I was connected to the local entrepreneur community and I could get them to a space and get them to collide. The second side of that is, economic development organizations used to be our enemy or perceived our enemy, but technically that's what we're doing. We're doing new age economic development. So going to them with a different approach, not in a competitive manner, but how can I partner with you to get resources to help build this ecosystem? Because I don't know if folks are aware, there's a lot of national federal dollars being put into ecosystem building, and we don't qualify as ecosystem builders directly to go after them. But if we partner with some of these organizations and write our fees into those grants and opportunities, we can derive some benefit, right? But a lot of this time is taking time to catalyze. I've tried and fit in different things, but if you look at ecosystem building as a big professional services firm, and depending on the type of need, and I joked about it, and Norris was the one that picked up my joke, it's a giant spreadsheet, right? If I'm a real estate developer, I click this tab, I put in a couple of numbers, and then it calculates what I can make. If it's a co-working space or service to entrepreneurs, economic, I put in a couple figures and I do that, but we just don't have the answer to those different figures. So what I was trying to do is collect a, sort of story, either from stories or from actual projects, how people make money and try to put that together as a first pass.
Well, Mark, my last consulting deal was with A.T. Kearney. It was for the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. They want to do entrepreneurship education. This is really exciting. But guess where the office, my pay is sitting in northern Italy. It's like and maybe by Christmas I'll get.
You might want to get paid You might want to get paid a Bitcoin or electronically. Yeah.
Well, who knows? There, at one point, one of the partners was actually on lockdown in their offices. It's like
not at home.
Why he didn't go home, I have no idea, but no, we'll see. But I love model of, you know, the professional services. I mean, that's genius, Mark. Anyway, we are all going to steal this from you.
And in one other conversation, this is the nut, right? This is the holy grail to me, right? So I've been talking a lot to angel funds, seed funds, and venture funds, right? So a lot of them are providing direct technical assistance to these entrepreneurs now. So they have their investment shops and their fund managers, but they're building these larger consulting organizations, bringing that technical assistance in-house. But what about the whole entrepreneurial infrastructure and the ecosystem that they need to support, right? So if you take placemaking, VC, and economic development, right, and you insert an ecosystem builder in the middle, there's value for you to coordinate and make sure that all those things work together, right? And they have funds and they have the patient capital. They can pay you on a retainer, right? You're not going to get rich off of it per se, but that's steady income to keep the lights on while you work your other things.
Yeah, Mark, and I'll just reaffirm, and that's one of the things I do see through the shifts. It has been gradual, but this alignment for the economic diversification function of the economic development portfolio, it has always been a niche. What we saw 2012, 2015, Australia was a bit late to the game for us. It hit around 2015, this explosion of innovation hubs, co-working spaces, skinny jeans, black t-shirts, which held the remit of this kind of work. Our pitch events, our hackathons, all this other language, pivot, iterate, that kind of stuff. It was good because it created a lot of attention and focus, but it was bad because it also created this us versus them. Mark, even in your conversation, when we go to them, and there's still a lot of that. I think in the next 12 months that's going to be eradicated. It is just us doing economic development functions, and you're right. There's a lot of money out there for that. There's these major economic development organizations that support local government because government doesn't attract the kind of people that will work in this space. So they outsource it. And so there are opportunities for us to then transition to have that conversation. So we're not constantly trying to get them on side. It is just our side supporting the work that needs to be done. And we are seeing that more and more. I think that's going to rationalize even faster in the work that we're seeing, and the quote unquote ecosystem builders that are able to align with that kind of work. I think are going to be more along the lines of the topic for this conversation, going to be more sustainable. I think the challenge then, though, is how do we build ourselves both legitimacy and the capability? Because potentially we've been wearing the skinny jeans for so long, then people see us as that. I even found out in my research that for innovation hubs that position themselves as co-working spaces as compared to ones that position themselves as innovation hubs doing economic development work, they're both doing the same functions, but how they talk about themselves is how they're perceived by the community, which actually either supports or diminishes their role that they have and the influence they have from traditional actors like chambers of commerce and other ones that are attracting different pools of funds.
Chad, that's really intriguing. But I'm tantalized. So what is there any glib generalizations as to what makes us look good or look bad? I know that co-working spaces are, depending on the community, are either seen as the hipster hangouts, or they're actually real innovation hubs. What is the differentiating factors that you've found so far?
It's just adding real value and showing that clear line of sight. Like a lot of the peak bodies in the chambers of commerce, like just watch what they do as far as the kind of people they bring on the table, the kind of language that they use. And showing a clear line of sight, saying I did this thing and then I had this result. And also working with established businesses. I think that's the other big thing is how do we innovate within existing businesses? One of the criticisms that all these places can have is it is just people getting around, drinking their lattes, doing their pitch events, nothing really happening. They're building these apps that maybe share photos on social media and cats and, ping pong and all that kind of stuff. So it's the ones that look like the existing actors, like your chambers and things like that, without becoming them. It really is a fine line. And I'd also say, as an example, it's the ones that can partner with those. So the chambers and those ones want to figure out how to do this work. How do we create programs and put Chambers logo on it? Maybe it's powered by the hub, but let them own it. Let them get the credit for it. I'm a big fan of work around collective impact and backbone organizations that are just behind the scenes driving the outcome. And I love the metaphor of the backbone because we don't even know it exists unless it's broken. You know, it's not like this big ego-driven, hey, look at us, look at us. It's actually, we know we're successful, nobody knows what we do, and we're still sustainable. So I think the ones, going back to your question, the ones that I've seen are working are the ones that are less high profile, more behind the scenes, more doing the connections, the bringing in different ideas, and let other people then get the credit and the glory. There's credit and glory doesn't pay my mortgage. Actually delivering value does.
I'll just share something that we did at our local small nonprofit here. We partnered with the local SBDC, Small Business Development Center, about a year ago to put on programs and basically be kind of a lead generation for them to get people into their to get entrepreneurs into their programs and whatnot. So they basically paid us a service fee to do a bunch of programs for them, which was great for a while. Our contract ran out. They had some internal turmoil, and now they're funneling all their money to directly support entrepreneurs through loans. So it was good for a while, but it still may be good once we're on the other side of this crisis. But I think, partnering with local chamber, it's kind of a SBDC local chamber of commerce affiliation that worked really well for us for a short time.
You raise another interesting point of what we see is that they can outsource for a while for that specialist skill set. And you're right, they can bring it internal and then develop their capabilities themselves. And so for our job, it's always that challenge of, and I've seen it even with like hacker spaces that ran programs from schools, and the schools bring STEM programs inside, which then takes away that revenue. And so how do we continuously adapt and innovate what we're doing? What we delivered last year isn't going to get us paid for that same thing the next year. So what can we do that maybe they can't do, or that will always be unique within our specialty? I don't necessarily have the answer for that, but it is this constant renewal. I'd be interested in, like, say, Katie or Beth, what your experiences are in these things.
I think just encouraging the backbone activity is key, and I think encouraging it in the right way can result in obviously funds going toward that function. When you are there to support as the backbone and convene and help fill gaps within the ecosystem and measure the outcomes and hold each other accountable to what we need in our ecosystems to make them healthy, to ultimately make our entrepreneurs be much more successful a lot faster. If we can do that and show the value, I'd love to know if there's anyone out there that has influenced that actual work to be done.
Well, victory has many parents, defeats an orphan. That whenever, at least I suspect it's not any different elsewhere, when there is a great success story, that everybody is lining up to take credit for it, and often to an embarrassing degree. I mean, that's just sort of the nature of sort of the political world we're in. But to the question of what can we do to differentiate, is one thing we can bring. Who else can bring the level of the magnitude and diversity of expertise and connections that our merry little band has? We don't have horses or coconuts, but we do have some amazing brain power and connections on here. I
will echo that connections, but that was exactly what I was thinking too, is ecosystem builders that I've come across. By far, the biggest thing is everybody's got connected. They are the connector, the hub of as far as connections go in the community, and that's got value.
We know from research that getting paid to connect is always kind of hard. There was a European PhD dissertation that found if you had the word connect in your job title or the title of your organization, you were not a connector. that it was very.
So that means I'm not, because I have it in our mission statement.
well. So if you're actually in a spaceship circling the globe, then I'm that's definitely counter evidence. Sorry, crazy dog.
Dog has a strong opinion.
I'm gonna mute until the.
I think that, one of the things that we're seeing here, because we have, I'm about to turn against the word ecosystem. I'm hearing it 50 times a day now. And I'm sure that most of the people who use it don't know what it is, but it's certainly fashionable. It's kind of like kale and avocado in food, everybody uses it. And I think
not all of it well.
yes, that's right. So here we have of course, our Wake Tech Small Business Center. We have the Small Business Technology Development Centers funded by the SBA. We have SCORE funded by the SBA. We have the Women's Business Centers funded by the SBA. Then we have some of the private nonprofits that are providing very similar services as far as counseling and training for small business owners and entrepreneurs. And all of these people right now are sending stuff out. So people are getting 1 million emails a day on COVID-19 updates, but they're also getting bunches of stuff from everybody on here's what to do with your business. I'm almost thinking that we would be better served to go to the ecosystem builders and let's just focus on what they need, as opposed to trying to do anything directly with the small business owners and entrepreneurs. Because they're the ecosystem builders are the ones, those are the tools out there that we're depending on to make things happen, right?
Right.
Is that what SCN's mission is?
Well, SCN is focused on the ecosystem builders. Yes, that's to empower, provide training, provide support to.
Say that again. SCN.
Yeah, the Startup Champions Network, right?
Yeah. See,
so
and I was on a call early today about someplace called the startup. There's the Co-Start.
Yep. Co-Starters, Techstars. So there's a little line of differentiation, right? But
right.
Go ahead.
But they're all members of SCN. So co-starters, Enoch, who's a founder, Stephen, who's the North American ecosystem person for Techstars, is also a member. So SCN is a network of professional ecosystem builders, and several of us on this call are, right? So that's helpful and effective because we're together and share best practices. So the idea of an SCN summit twice a year is that we come together and share best practices and delve into how we can collaborate together and refining that profession of ecosystem builders. So there's that. Which, I mean, Mark is the treasurer at this point of SCN. So those are helpful. I think it's an opportunity for an organization like SCN to put out there, hey, you know what? There's a bunch of people that have been thinking about this for a really long time, and we've been working on it together. So this is a definite opportunity. It's that that I think we try so hard to recreate, like a conversation that I've had around SCN, around one of the Goal 1 projects, which is a speakers bureau. And for a little while, there's a discussion about creating an inclusive speaker bureau or creating a speaker bureau within SCN, which would be all well and good, but why do we go and try to do the thing that we don't need to create when we can partner with a speaker bureau and just offer a slate of people that know how to talk about ecosystem building in an effective way, right? So we can be a go-to organization to, like, if you need somebody to talk about ecosystem building, you're going to contact the speaker bureau because you need somebody for a conference or online content. Then the speaker bureaus would know, oh, you know what? Here's a resource called Startup Champions Network, and they know they're the go-to place to go find an ecosystem builder. Or I guess, that's basically what the ESHIP community is. Your this is a repository of resources that that are knowledgeable and really good at. These are the people that you go to ask questions. And I think that's the idea of the marketplace, was here are some tools, here are the people that do things well, and so how do you find them? Well, we need a marketplace in order to find these things, and that's the hope and the goal of what the marketplace is meant to be, and that's still a work in progress. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's a couple of things that came up in that. Say one of them is, and coming where we're talking about sustainability, is one is what level we want to play at. So a lot of people that play definitely at the level of helping entrepreneurs directly. There's people that support the people helping the entrepreneurs develop directly, and then there's people that operate at the overall systems level. I think we get into trouble with scarce resources that we have when you're trying to do too much. If I'm sitting there actually helping an entrepreneur and trying to help those who help entrepreneurs and thinking about the systems and be able to address it, definitely we can have interest in all of them, but where are we going to focus our resources? And then who else plays in that space? Where is their competition? And how do we actually get paid to help other people be a success? Much like you mentioned with Speakers Bureau, they already do that. Fantastic. But they can't do everything either. And so then how do we help make them a success? And then we can get paid for doing some of that work. So that's an interesting thought process. Again, interested in what other people have to say about it as far as, what level do we play at? How do we make the most impact in the very short period of time and the scarce resources that we have, especially when they're getting shorter and scarcer in the next few months?
Any ideas to share?
Well, as a field, it'd be interesting to know what data is going to be tracked when it comes to small business and startups throughout this crisis. And are there gaps that need to be filled in data gathering, and could we play some type of collective role in that? Chad, I would think, Chad, you or Norris, I would think would have, maybe you too, Katie, all of you, better ideas of that than I would.
I think the big thing that these businesses need now, because they're not, some of them by necessity, because the government has said so, have shut them down, and they can't generate any revenue or very much revenue like they did before. Like if your product is not something that can be shipped, and your service is something that requires you to put your hands on people. Like I was on the phone this morning at 8:30 with one of our county commissioners. He's getting phone calls from barbers. Barbers are saying, what am I going to do? I mean, I touch people's bodies, and now I cannot cut somebody's hair from 6 feet away. What they really need is bailout money, that not a loan. I think we should treat them the same way we bail out the big businesses as a society, so that they can survive.
So the challenge with that, and part of the reason that we were talking about creation of some kind of online survey tool that's open source, is because the need for questions that we may not think to ask, and if we're able to vote up and down like the pertinence of these questions, then at least we know that we're not replicating efforts, right? It's a collective of information, and that when you open source things, sometimes you get crap and sometimes you get really good stuff. So being able to bubble up the things that are important and urgent for people, and then the other things kind of fall to the bottom, but that doesn't discount that we've at least addressed that. The thing is that people like barbers, they fall between the systems. So they're not necessarily on the SBA radar, right? Because they're not currently in loan mode. If you've owned a business for 30 years, that doesn't make you a startup, so you're not necessarily counted on that way. If you're a bartender that waits tables and the bar's closed down, but the restaurant's gone online, so there's still employing you, now you're underemployed. So you're not collecting unemployment. You just don't make as much money as you have. So these people between the systems will never get counted because they don't fall under someone's metrics that's being accounted for. Big corporations will always have the voice. And that's where, you know, and then I read this really disturbing fact that 96% of the people that got bailouts back in the last recession have bought back their stocks. It's like, wow, we just paid them to be able to be sustainable, and now they're asking for more money again. And you know, the big corporations that told their people to stay home, which made for the hospitality industry to be in this big wind down, right? So the corporations still have revenue and money coming in. So I proposed to a friend of mine who works in hospitality still, I said, why don't you offer them a break to buy vouchers for hotel rooms for the future? Like, you'll get them a deal, but you'll have revenue coming in. And he said, that's a great idea, but they're afraid to spend money at this point. So he can't even go to his corporate accounts to say, if you'll prepay for hotel rooms, I'll give you a 50% discount or whatever, just to keep revenue coming in to help, you know, maintain his staff. So it's all of those things that that create the fear and the flow of the money not going to the places that need to have it. So I want to be mindful of time and make sure that we address, is there anything else kind of top of mind that you would like to work on or think about or ideate together, since we're all on this call?
Christine, that the government actually does keep track of underemployment. When they say, here are the unemployment statistics, that's U3. They've got several variations on, you know, there are people who are part-time who want to be full-time, and so on. And they stopped publicizing the numbers because they were so horrible in the last recession. Also, there's something, the Coronavirus Response Act that was signed last Thursday, that companies dealing with companies under 500 employees, if you offer sick leave, if you have paid sick leave to your employees, you will get a refundable tax credit, which means for some cases they're going to get cash. But you might look at the Coronavirus Response Act, because I was surprised that our local banks had not even heard about it, that I shared that out and people were quite excited. But there is data on underemployment. It's it can get pretty frightening in the depths of a recession, but they are watching that very closely.
Yeah, I was on a call this morning too, earlier today too, on the disaster benefit from the Treasury directly. It's being managed by the SBA, but the checks will come directly from the Treasury, not going through the bank. So I'm sure the banks don't know anything about this. But what was encouraging about that is that the repayment is deferred, won't begin until the end of this year. And the interest rates are as low as 3.75 for for-profits and 2.75 for nonprofits. So that's looking better. It's not 0% interest, but you know, being able to defer the payments until December, and they're supposed to be able to process the payments out in 21 to 30 weeks after you submit, 30 days, excuse me, after you submit your application. So that's encouraging, but it's still debt. So I think, you know, coming off of this call talking about an inclusive field, excuse me, no, I'm sorry. No, that's not sustainable work. I'm sorry. I'm doing all of them. The question is, what can we implement? What can we do between now and the next call? Any ideas?
Well, I would say gather data on all these, because I've been on a couple of these SBA calls, and I have the luxury of being in DC, near DC, so I've talked to the SBA folks. So they're still figuring this all out. So just bear in mind what's going on is unprecedented, right? So, and legislators are trying to react in the best way possible, but there's a lot of information that's being pulled out. And the question I always ask, what about entrepreneurs or innovation-driven enterprises, right? And what about gig economy workers? So the fundamental backbone of the economy was based on large corporations, and it's slowly been trying to shift. So that's why they always got the stimulus. And this is me on my soapbox for a minute, and I'm sure a couple of you agree with me. But what this pandemic has shown is that there's some flaws, obviously, in capitalism, and that the nature of work has changed, right? Because like independent contractors, gig economy workers, developers, barbers, there's a lot more people falling through the cracks right now, and we got to make our legislators aware. So there will be some sort of socialist stimulus that will try to get us through the short term, but we have to figure out a long-term solution on how we grow our economy. And I think we're part of the group that tries to do that. So as a couple people I was talking to that were trying to encourage me, it's like your work is more important now than ever, but there's still a lot more unknowns that we need to figure out as a group. And it starts with having some of this data and us making some interpretations and some guess, right? Because they don't track the data we need to capture. Like the one question I asked too, do we have, if I give you a zip code, can you tell me the number of W-2 versus 1099 employees? And I was talking directly to census people, and they're like, no, right? So there's a lot of holes in the system, but I am still cautiously optimistic that we will figure it out.
So Mark, have you talked to Peter Kritikos about stuff like this?
No, I haven't talked to Peter, but he might. I think he's on a call that I was on.
So he's looking at the future of work and working with some governors on stuff, and he's connected with Dustin Shea over at Village Capital that's talking about future work. Right. So if you'd like, I'm happy to connect you. Sure. So because I think it's a necessary thing, but let's continue to keep thinking about it, and I appreciate everybody's energy and time, and let's continue to keep going. So thank you, and I will upload this call, and we'll just keep talking about how we can work on some stuff together. Okay. All right, and I really appreciate your information, Mark. And if you have like a thesis statement or something that you can share, that would be helpful too on the thing that you're talking about funding for others. Can that be a project?
Well, it's
like
a
project initiative.
Yes, it's a derivative of the funding compass, right? So if everyone looks at it's 7, well, all of them are called 7.1. But it's called the Ecosystem Funding Compass. So there's some ideas there that I've been sort of honing in and looking at, right? Because I'm not saying all the other projects weren't good, but I'm like, look.
No, but if you fill out a project canvas, I can upload it to the dashboard as well.
Yeah, I'll send you the Funding Compass one, and you can upload it to the dashboard.
Okay, send it over my way.
All right.
Thank you. Everybody have a good week. And we'll probably do another virtual happy hour probably towards the end of the week. So not to talk about this, maybe just to listen to more music. I don't know. But.
Well, the ABC stores are still open.
Yep.
Right.
Essential business.
Yeah.
They are. Yep. They're deemed essential.
All right. We'll talk to you soon.
All right.
Okay, bye.
Bye.